Let me tell you a story about my childhood. The year was 2007, and my family had moved to Brisbane. Now, at the time, as a kid who grew up in Canberra, this was a troublesome time because that would mean I would be flying away, moving away from all my family, my cousins, my grandparents, my aunts, uncles, all the people that loved me, right? And now I'm in this completely new, unrecognizable territory that I did not have any clue what it would be like, And I had the only people I had there to love me at the time was my parents, my mom and dad. Okay, and I barely started in grade two, and yeah, I as you would expect on the first day of school, on grade two, I I, bar- I barely managed to get any friends. Of course, later down the line, I would get some of the best friends, most best friends I would ever have in that same school. But at the time when I was barely just beginning, I had nobody. I was just this lonely kid, right? And then one day, my dad came home and he showed me he bought a few movies, right? And he bought a few movies that would forever change me and would make me be this monster movie loving guy that I am today. My dad came home and he brought Godzilla. Not the 1998 version, uh, and not the original 1954 version, but he came home with a few movies of the Millennium franchise: Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, Godzilla Mothra King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Out Attack, and Godzilla vs. Megaguirus. He bought and kept those three movies, and ever since, I would watch those three movies and I would love them. I would have so much fun. Godzilla changed me as a child. I loved watching the Godzilla movies. I watched Godzilla and I loved the monsters that fought against Godzilla. I grew this humongous love for these monster movies. And not just because of Godzilla, but yeah, because of Godzilla and everything that happens around Godzilla. And then further down the line, my dad would rent some of these two Showa movies. He unfortunately didn't buy them, but don't worry, I get those movies. I get to keep those movies much later in life. But he rented two other Godzilla movies, so I saw two of the original Showa movies, which were the original Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla and Godzilla Giant Monsters. No, not that. Godzilla Destroy All Monsters, right? And yeah, I loved the Godzilla movies. I would remember, despite the fact that I did not own any Godzilla toys, I would grab a random toy, try and figure out which one looks the most closest to this monster, and I would reenact the fights from the movies. Like I would grab, like, let's say a generic T-Rex toy for Godzilla, and let's say like Scorponok from the Transformers movie, but I turned his tail upside down to make him look like Megaguirus. And yeah, that was me as a child, and ever since I've watched more Godzilla movies, learned more of the monsters, learned more of the history through my history, and it's stuck with me ever since. I loved giant monster movies. I loved movies like Cloverfield, King Kong, and yeah, and all thanks to Big G himself. So then 2014 came around and they made the new Godzilla movie. And of course I was stoked, I was excited, and I went to watch it with a whole bunch of my mates from Brisbane, and we had fun. It was a fun experience. We loved the movie. I loved the movie. It made me jump out of my seat. And then the directors, and then the movie, the movie became surprisingly good everywhere, right? To even Toho themselves admitted like, this is pretty good. So then they decided, let's make another one. Let's make a MonsterVerse. So they planned to make Godzilla fight King Kong, right? And they announced that they were going to make a second Godzilla movie with Mothra, King Ghidorah, and Rodan. That excited me so much. I've been on board with Godzilla King of the Monsters ever since 2014. I was super excited. I was thinking what they're possibly going to do with this monster. I was crossing my fingers on how they're going to do it, you know. And I've been drawing the monsters ever since 2014, and I would talk to my friends in Pottsville, because at the time, during this time, I moved again to Pottsville, blah blah blah, but whatever. But yeah, I would talk to my friends, my new friends there, while still being kept in contact with the Brisbane mates, and I would tell them like, oh, I'm excited for this, blah 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 blah, and they would just go like, oh, okay, that's cool. And yeah, and now comes the day where Godzilla King of the Monsters was released. Now, of course, by the time I recorded this, I'm like, what, 2 weeks or so late. I wanted to like hold in, you know, like I wanted to have the same experience with as I did with 2014. I wanted to watch this movie with my mates again. Unfortunately, only 2 of them could come, Lucky and Nick, but whatever. I got what I got. It doesn't matter. But yeah, like, it's just, I have so much to talk about this movie. So, I loved it. What can I say? I loved Godzilla King of the Monsters, and I'm gonna tell you why. So, here is, from the perspective of an actual Godzilla fan, I'm gonna tell you what I thought of this movie, every detail, and of course there'll be spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie and you don't want to get spoiled, click away now. And again, as I said in the Finding Dory review, this is my opinion, don't rampage against me, right? And I hope you enjoy. Okay, so let's first start off with Godzilla. Of course, this is Godzilla's movie, so we gotta talk about Godzilla first before I get to everything else, right? So, this is Godzilla's movie, a sequel. How does he improve with the last one? Well, what I appreciate about the directors is that they took all the criticism from the first Godzilla movie and they brought it in with this one, right? The criticism being that Godzilla wasn't in it enough, right? And, well, I didn't personally feel like it was a problem to me. And it's still nice to see that there's definitely much more Godzilla in this movie. And what I also like about this Godzilla in this sequel is that it actually focuses on Godzilla this time. Let's be honest, the first movie, it may have been supposedly being Godzilla's movie, but let's be honest, the movie felt like it was more focused on the Mutos. And, oh yeah, Godzilla's there as well. But yeah, whenever you hear the people talking about the monsters, they are always talking about like, we need to kill the Mutos. Oh, Godzilla's there, don't worry, he'll kill them. But in this one, they're definitely much more focused on Godzilla. You know, they acknowledge that Godzilla exists, right? And they acknowledge Godzilla so much more, right? They have like these conversations of like, should we destroy the monsters? Blah 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 blah. And when King Ghidorah eventually gets loose, all the people in this movie acknowledge that we're not going to win this unless we have Godzilla. And yeah, the movie definitely felt like it was more centered towards Godzilla. And I like that. I like that it actually this time does focus on Godzilla. This is his movie. He should be focused, not the one he. I mean, this is the exception, right? Because it's King Ghidorah, right? King Ghidorah is cool. He's an OG Godzilla monster. I'll get to King Ghidorah in a moment, but yeah, like this should be Godzilla's movie, not your own creation of a monster like the Muto. Like the Muto was a cool original monster, even though I felt like the design was, seemed too much like Cloverfield, but. Yeah, like, come on. You gotta focus on Godzilla, and that's exactly what they did. They also improved the design, which I didn't mind that they've changed the design. I didn't mind the old designs at all. In fact, I kind of liked the old design of him being a big, fat, hulking giant, where if he may seem slow, but if he grabs you once, you're doomed. you know? And, yeah, this time they buffed him up more. He's, like, much more muscular and less fat, and this time I think he had abs. But yeah, Godzilla was definitely a huge improvement in this one, right? His laser definitely felt like it was more, his atomic breath felt much more powerful than it did in the first one, because this time it actually felt like, a full blasting force rather than just a blue flame. Which was basically what it was in the first movie. It was just a blue flame in the first one. But this time it actually was like pushing you back and everything. And Burning Godzilla. They introduced Burning Godzilla in this one. And they made Burning Godzilla so cool. I'm glad they actually acknowledged the existence of Burning Godzilla in this one, Like, people say that, oh, it's not Burning Godzilla, it's just Godzilla that's red. No, it's Burning Godzilla, let's be honest, right? When he walks, everything around him is melting. That is Burning Godzilla. And that's how he eventually kills King Ghidorah. It's just simply just being there and just, like, releasing these energy blasts to melt King Ghidorah alive, and it was cool. It was cool seeing Burning Godzilla again. He wasn't quite dying like in Destroyer, but he was tough. And I always acknowledge that Burning Godzilla is always the strongest stage of Godzilla, And yeah, he definitely seemed powerful. And I'll give you this: like when Godzilla became Burning Godzilla. and killed King Ghidorah the way he did in the movie. It was at that moment, like, before I watched Godzilla King of the Monsters, I've always, I knew King Kong would have not the biggest chance of winning, but I still think he would have had some kind of chance, being a big brute ape, like, you've seen the way he fights, he's brutal, right? But after seeing what Godzilla did in that movie, I watched that and I was in the movies, like, thinking, nah, Kong doesn't have a chance. I don't know. We have to wait until next year. I'm sure the fight will be awesome. What I really want is to see that tree scene again. Like, Kong grab a giant tree and shove it down Godzilla's throat. I hope they remake that scene. But anyways, now's not the time to talk about Godzilla versus Kong. But yeah, Godzilla. Yeah, he was great. He was a vast improvement on the first one. Yeah, and I should talk about the human characters, right? I should get the human characters out of the way, and then I'll talk about the other three monsters. So the human characters. What did I think about the human characters? Well, I guess they're a bit more interesting than what they were in the first movie. The first guy being like this whole nuke expert. Millie Bobby Brown, of course, she was excellent. This kind girl, and the mother. People at first go like, people originally like look at her and her motivation to free the monsters, and they go like, why would you do that? How does this help bring back your son? But that's the thing. I guess it's supposed to be like that, you know, because even Millie Bobby Brown's character just goes like, "This won't bring back your son," because that's the whole motivation in the end, I guess, for the the mom, because her son supposedly died in the first movie, I guess, and that damaged mentally the both of them, right? But here's the thing: I like to think of it like this way, right? I like to think that the mother blames humans for her son's death. You know, like, we created Godzilla, we created these monsters, so in the way, this is our fault. I feel like that's what they were trying to go for. You know, she saw that we are technically in the end game, were the real reason why our son is dead, because we created the monster that killed her son. So therefore, she's trying to, I don't know. But I don't know. Yeah, it's just, yeah. And Tywin Lannister's character, just an ordinary bad guy, terrorist that wants to control the monsters. You know, the usual stuff. They've been. It's nothing too unusual. Those type of characters have been in Godzilla movies before, with, you know, the aliens and stuff. And yeah, I'm pretty sure there was one time where there were, yeah, that's right, there were time traveling terrorists in one Godzilla movie, in Godzilla versus King Ghidorah. But yeah, the motivation of like freeing all the monsters, which in the end ultimately backfires because of King Ghidorah. Which again, I'll get to King Ghidorah because I have so much to say about King Ghidorah. But yeah, some of the other characters. The dad, I did like the dad a lot. He was useful. He was wise-ish, I guess, and he did felt important because he was an animal expert. And seeing as how this is a movie about giant monsters, and giant monsters are basically animals, right? You're gonna need an animal expert, you know, to go like, "Oh, I know what they're doing. They're heading to this direction for food," or blah 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 blah. He's the alpha male, and yeah, I liked the dad. Some of the background characters, or some of them are alright. Like I didn't mind the military black chick. She was pretty cool. There were some characters I completely forgot. There was the sidekick, Serizawa. Oh, bugger me! I forgot. How could I not talk about Serizawa? All right, Serizawa. As always, in the first movie, he was cool. I liked Serizawa in this movie. It still felt like the same character. Just so unfortunate that he had to get killed off in this one. You know, like, yeah, they had to find Godzilla. Like they found God. All right. So the oxygen destroyer. Let's talk about the oxygen destroyer. So the oxygen destroyer is a really important weapon in the Godzilla franchise. It's been made in the first movie, and it's the weapon that ultimately killed Godzilla, right? So if you're gonna put it in your movie, it should be a big deal. It should be a big build-up, right? But here's the thing: they just suddenly out of nowhere introduced the oxygen destroyer. I guess here's a small complaint I guess I have to make with the oxygen destroyer, right? The oxygen destroyer should be a big deal because it's the weapon that killed Godzilla. And hey, when I was watching the movie and I saw that the oxygen destroyer was introduced, I thought that's how they were going to kill King Ghidorah. It wasn't. Well, but yeah, like they basically, like, what happened was they were in the jets and they were attracting Rodan to go fight King Ghidorah, to hope that Rodan kills King Ghidorah, I guess. And what actually happens is, like, King Ghidorah defeats Rodan, and then Godzilla suddenly comes out of nowhere and starts fighting King Ghidorah in the water, right? And so now you got three monsters in the water, and then suddenly the military guy from the first movie goes like, we have no choice. We have the chance now. Three monsters. We have to kill them now. No, wait, Commander. No, we have to kill it now. We're already firing it. By the way, it's called the oxygen destroyer, and that's the introduction. They just go like, we have to kill these monsters. We're doing it now. By the way, here's the oxygen destroyer. Whoa. I feel like that should have been so much more build up because again, it's the weapon that kills Godzilla. Don't get me wrong, when they actually do fire it and the explosion goes off, it's a really cool spectacle. This green atomic, massive atomic bomb, you know, and it did like really wound Godzilla. But again, the oxygen destroyers should have more build up, you know. And should have like I don't know, some scientists are like, I have an idea how to kill a monster, and like they're building it. And it's like, what do you call it? I call it the oxygen destroyer. But no, they just suddenly go like, we're going to kill the monsters. We're doing it now. Oh, by the way, here's an oxygen destroyer. But yeah, so yeah, they do that. It really hurts Godzilla. He goes to swim to like Atlantis, I assume, and to try and heal up so he can go have a round two for Gods to fight King Ghidorah, right? But the problem is that the process would have to take too long, right? And I will say this, I do actually like the change and like they come up with the idea like, all right, we can't just wait for him to heal back up. We need to accelerate it. We need to fire a nuke at him. And it's kind of like, I don't know, it's like a big like character development, you know, came from fearing these nukes to like to the point where we nukes are still bad, but we need to use them, you know, like. And yeah, that's exactly what they did. They find Godzilla, but like it's too hot and stuff. And Serizawa goes like, "I will do it," and they detonate the nuke to wake Godzilla up, and that it works. Godzilla's empowered, and he goes to go fight King Ghidorah one last time. And sadly, yeah, Serizawa dies in the nuke blast. But yeah, he was awesome for the two movies he was in. Yeah. But yeah, like I said, the fact that they use a nuke to rejuvenate Godzilla instead of destroying it, it almost felt like this is like a hopeful like metaphor, like Godzilla being the good guy. Like Godzilla has always been the metaphor of the nukes and the fear of these super weapons, right? And Godzilla being the good guy to ultimately save the day is the hope that we would never have to use a super weapon ever again, you know. Like the hope that we can have a peace in this world without having to nuke another country or anything. But yeah, so that's all I have to say about Godzilla. Now let's get to the really juicy stuff. Let's talk about King Ghidorah. Now, before the movie came out, I wanted these big free rules to happen with King Ghidorah, right? I wanted King Ghidorah in this movie needed to be bigger than Godzilla. He needed to be an actual legitimate threat of the Earth rather than just, he's a monster that just exists, so we have to kill him. And he needs isn't usually a trope in Godzilla movies, but I felt like for this one to really um overestimate how powerful he is, um we needed to make King Ghidorah win against Godzilla in the first round, right? And that's yeah, that's what happens. So King Ghidorah, I really want King Ghidorah to be right? I wanted King Ghidorah to be, well, King Ghidorah. He had to be legitimately threatening. He is the monster that is Godzilla's enemy. The monster that has um threatens to destroy Godzilla's world. Hell, even one interpretation of King Ghidorah had him be a world eater. Now, of course, this one's not as destructive as that one, but this one's still quite destructive. I'll get to that in a moment, right? But I would have to say, out of all the King Ghidorahs that I've seen from my time of watching Godzilla movies, I'd have to say Legendary is probably my favorite interpretation. You know, they did it pretty well. Like they managed to tick all three boxes. He's bigger. He's definitely bigger than Godzilla, right? Toll wise. Um, and that's great. King Ghidorah has always been taller than Godzilla, so yeah, they needed him to be big for him to be in this movie, right? He can't just be at Godzilla's level, right? And they met, and I didn't know if they were actually going to do it, but they actually did, right? I don't know if people would agree with me or not, but I honestly reckon when Godzilla first fought King Ghidorah in Antarctica, I honestly do reckon King Ghidorah won that first round, because Godzilla was getting thrown around a bit. He got thrown into like an ice chasm, and he managed to fly away, right? I personally saw that as a victory for King Ghidorah, right? And it's still amazing and pretty cool to see that King Ghidorah defeated Godzilla the first round, right? And then the second round happened. And Godzilla might have won the second time because it was in the water, but then the military had to come in and cause the schemes. And then the third and final round happened, and what I like, and it's like it kind of felt even, but even then, during that whole fight between Godzilla and King Ghidorah, through a lot of the time, it felt like King Ghidorah was actually the victor. You know, excuse me. When King Ghidorah, what I like about this movie is that the the title of this movie, right? When you first hear it, Godzilla King of the Monsters, at first you think like this movie's like, stating the obvious, Godzilla is the king of the monsters. Well, yeah, duh. But then when you actually watch it and see the actions that King Ghidorah does, you actually really like question yourself. The movie title King of the Monsters becomes more than just this is what who Godzilla is. The title King of the Monsters becomes the title of, well, who is the actual King of the Monsters. Now, when you first started, your first thought is obviously Godzilla, right? And by the end of the movie, it still is Godzilla, right? But even like at some point, when King Ghidorah comes out of that water after the oxygen destroyer and rears its wings on top of that volcano, um, it 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 it's actually pretty frightening, right? He calls out his little roar, his call, his alpha call, calls out all these other monsters, and King Ghidorah becomes the king of the monsters. And actually like how King Ghidorah rightfully receives his title as king. Like for all the other movies, usually it's just, oh, it's King Ghidorah. Ooh, it's so threatening. Ooh. But this time he actually does act like a king, just a false king or a dark king, if you put it in this movie. And I like how they managed to interpret that into an actual full-on threat. They made King Ghidorah the most threatening monster simply by doing that one scene in the volcano, right? And that's everything about that scene is surprising. The fact that it grew back its head, which has never happened before, that actually legitimately caught me by surprise. Do I dislike that change? No, I like it. King Ghidorah is based off of Hydra, so figuratively, I don't mind him growing back a head like a Hydra, right? And then he does his alpha call, and yeah, he controls the monsters, and is basically trying to destroy all life on this planet, right? And then once he's done with that planet, he just flies off to find another inhabitable planet. And I like that. I like what they did with King Ghidorah. He's legitimately threatening. I'm really proud of what they did with King Ghidorah. It's honestly is my favorite interpretation of King Ghidorah. He's tough, he's strong, he's threatening, he's big. Like he's not just a pushover like he was in the Showa and the High Sea. He was a bit more stronger in the High Sea, but he still got his ass kicked by Godzilla. I used to always remember like this one simple rule, right? I used to remember the rule of Godzilla can't defeat King Ghidorah unless he has someone to help him. And in this case, in this movie, it did help. He did had help, with Mothra coming in. Then Rodan came in, like, but even then, even still, Mothra still helped him. So yeah, they did pretty well with King Ghidorah, and yeah, I tip my hat to you, Legendary. You did wicked. So yeah. So now that we're done with Mothra, no, not Mothra. Now that we're done with King Ghidorah, let's get to the other two monsters. Let's start off with Mothra. Yeah, we'll do Mothra. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, here's what I think of Mothra. Okay, so when talking about Mothra, um, we gotta, yeah, there's some things. I guess I'll talk about the positive things about Mothra first. Cause that they still did pretty well with Mothra. She looked beautiful. Her caterpillar design was nice. It was pretty, but at the same time scary. And I also like how they made Mothra a fighter, like a proper fighter, giving her these like sharp legs, knife legs or whatever, and a stinger and this webbing ability that she spits out. I like that they made Mothra, actually be capable of fighting other giant monsters, because if you look at the past interpretations of Mothras, she's really fluffy, and all she could really do is just ram into you or just blow wind at you. But this Mothra can definitely do much more damage, and to the point where she can even take on Rodan and win. I like that when she fought Rodan, she was the one that victor, rather than just the one that looked like it would be obvious, but no, it was Mothra that wins in the end. I like that Mothra is not just a fluffy butterfly, she's a proper, monster. But in this, there's some things I wish they did more with Mothra. Okay, for the beginning, for example, right? They awakened Mothra, and one guy goes like, "Ah, it's a giant monster," and Mothra, in self-defense, fights back. And I like how she does it, like very passively. Yeah, she passively fights back. She doesn't just straight up like crush or eat the humans. She literally just throws them and sticks them against the wall with web. She doesn't kill them. She just sticks them with web. I really like that they did that, because Mothra always has been the monster that looks at human life and all life on Earth and sees them as precious, and that she needs to protect them. So in that way, she doesn't kill them. She just like sticks them against the wall and goes like, "You think what you did, young man?" But what I wish they did with the movie is that when the mother is like trying to control the orca thing or whatever, the machine that they use to control the monsters, I guess, instead of the daughter coming out and going like, "Oh no, you need to do this," and then controlling Mothra so she doesn't attack back, what I wish they did instead is have her like stand in front of the mother, going like, "No, don't hurt her," and then Mothra's like reads back and goes like, "Oh no, wait, ooh, you really care about her," I feel like that would have been really fitting for Mothra, to stop what she's doing, see that it's a daughter who clearly loves her mother, and just stop fighting. That would have been much more fitting for Mothra, rather than just, "We have control over the monster now." Yeah, the orca is a bit of a weird plot device. But you know what? It's not the first time they had a plot device where we have this device that can control the monsters. It's been used many times before, so I'll let it pass. Yeah. But anyways, we're not talking about that. We're talking about Mothra, right? So yeah, and another complaint that I wish I had with Mothra, I wish they did more with Mothra, is just simply just having her do more. You know, I felt like we didn't really have enough with Mothra, and you would see, and you will hear from this later on when I talk about Rodan. It's the same for Rodan too, right? We have a lot of Godzilla, we have a lot of Ghidorah. I'm satisfied with both, and I'm still satisfied with the amount of Mothra and Rodan we had in this movie. But I wish we had more. You know, I wish we had more Mothra, because in the movie, I feel like there wasn't enough of her. You know, again, what we got from Mothra was still great, but I wish there was more of her. You know, I wish she did more stuff, and yeah, but yeah, she was still very pretty in the end. Yeah, and of course, in classic Godzilla fashion, she gets killed by King Ghidorah, and her powder, her spirit, I guess, empowers Godzilla to ultimately defeat Ghidorah. So, yeah. And other than that, there's nothing else I can really say about Mothra. Oh, the Mothra twins. I guess I'll talk about. I really do like the subtle hint of the Mothra twins. You know, they go like they very cleverly add them in. You know, the Mothra twins have always been the monster. The monster? No, the humans or fairies, I guess, that control Mothra, you know? And they're in there, yeah. And I guess it works. They're a part of monarchs rather than just being fairies. But yeah, the Mothra twins are still in there, nonetheless. And yeah. So yeah, Mothra. She was great. She was beautiful. She was cool. But I wish we had more of her. So yeah, that's all I have to say about Mothra. So now with that done out of the way, let's talk about Rodan. Now, before I ever saw King of the Monsters, I wasn't exactly the biggest fan of Rodan. I don't know. Like, Rodan was still a cool concept of a monster or giant pteranodon, pterodactyl, fire demon thing. but, like, but the whole world treated, like, Rodan as one of Godzilla's greatest monsters in the one of Godzilla's greatest monsters in the Godzilla franchise. Even though when I look back, I don't really remember that many Godzilla monster movies with Rodan in it. You know, there's still some of them, like the original Ghidorah, the 300 monsters. Mechagodzilla brought around Rodan. He was cool in that one, I guess. He actually had a laser beam in that one. And that was probably the only time he ever had a laser beam. But generally, I personally was more of a fan towards, let's say, Anguirus than Rodan, right? But, so, it was going to be interesting to see what they were going to do with Rodan, right? And before the movie came out, they kept on hyping up Rodan specifically, because I remember in the trailers he was like the one monster that showed up the most in the trailers, in Rodan, no, in the Godzilla trailers, and bloody the director himself actually really liked Rodan, and he's like said that this Rodan was going to be like hella tough and he's going to be really cool and stuff. And I was thinking, like, for the movie, like maybe he was going to do some, I don't know, some kind of like fire kamikaze like movement or something, because was born out of a volcano like the original Rodan. But nah. he's just a giant pterodactyl with fire coming out of him, I guess. But yeah, but still, once again, just like Mothra, I felt like we didn't get enough Rodan. But here's the thing, right? Even though we didn't get that much with Rodan, the scenes that we got of Rodan, like specifically when he came out of the volcano and fought against the jets, The entirety of that scene was just cool. Like that whole scene was just really cool. I won't, even though we didn't get enough Rodan, I'm not gonna lie. Though, like the one main scene of Rodan was like the coolest Rodan has ever been. Honestly, like Legendary managed to make Rodan like actually really cool. He really is. Everything about that scene's perfect. The way he gets out of the volcano and just fly, simply just by flying across the town, he completely just decimates it. And the way he fights against those military jets, it was just, everything about that scene was cool. It's just, if only I got that actual promise of him being like really tough, because when he actually fought against not Godzilla, King Ghidorah, King Ghidorah knocked him out. Like, didn't barely stood a chance. They collided. Rodan tried to bite down a bit, and all it took was just King Ghidorah to just simply just grab him and just get out of here. And yeah, and then later Rodan fought against Mothra. He definitely did do quite a nasty beating to her, but Rodan still managed to lose against Mothra. Which, but again, I guess that's good for Mothra. You know, it made Mothra more tougher, I guess. But still, it made Rodan look like a super weakling of a monster. Like, but yeah, but generally, Rodan was really cool in this movie. Yeah. But I wish we had more of him. You know what they should do? Because Mothra and Rodan had their own solo movies back in the day, you know, that's how they originally originated from. They didn't originate from Godzilla. They originated from their own movies, and then they crossed over to Godzilla franchise to fight Ghidorah, right? So perhaps after Godzilla vs. Kong, if it goes really, really well, I would really like to see a solo Mothra and Rodan movie. Specifically Rodan. I want to actually see Rodan be a tough monster, because otherwise, from what I've seen from him so far, he's just a monster that acts tough, but then gets his ass kicked easily. I want Rodan to actually show how tough he can actually be. Like, make him fight against Mega Gears or something. But yeah. And yeah, that's all I have to say about Rodan. And other than that, I think that's it. But so yeah, this movie was really cool. I enjoyed it. It was a great experience. And yeah, hopefully by the time this comes out, it's not in the cinemas anymore. Hell, by the time I'm recording this last audio, I'm like on my cruise. I'm in my cabin, just recording the audio for the Rodan section. But whatever. But yeah, that's not important. So yeah, go see the movie. Go if you can. The harsh criticism is really unnecessary. The movie was just really fun, and yeah. And you should definitely get it. So, that's it. And I hope you enjoy.